Hey everybody, it's Coach Brian from LACROSSE. Today we're going to work on stringing up a traditional pocket. Pretty cool stuff, and looks pretty intimidating, maybe tough to start out with, but it's not so bad, so we're just doing the same stuff over and over again. So got ourselves our cool Carolina Blue STX Surgeon. Just picked this up today. I was thinking about selling or trading it, but I really like it. I'll probably keep it. So we're going to start off today just loosely going over our materials. We've got our leather strips. For this one we're going to use two 10-ounce leathers for our outer and two 8-ounce leathers for our inside. Real slight difference in thickness, but sometimes that difference makes all the difference in the world. This will give us a really nice tight channel and this narrowed head. And it's not going to give us any extra whip, but a lot of hold in that pocket. So we'll go ahead, throw these in there. We'll kind of explain how we do that, how I set them up, and then I'll also show you guys the super duper top secret Minlax bottom string for your leathers. You might look at your head and look at the leather and say, hey, there's no way this leather's going in that hole. I got that covered with the Minlax bottom string. We'll probably break this one up into a couple different videos, otherwise it'll take forever to convert and upload. So to start out with, let's get these leathers put up in the head. So as you've seen from the other videos, we know how to cut the leather and cut the holes in the middle. So we've got our strips ready to go, how to stretch them, break them in, how to treat them with the oils. So we're going to start out with our outer leathers, our thinner 8-ounce leathers, and they're going to go in the middle. So we're just going to feed that through this hole in the head and pull that through until the slit I made is exposed. So you can see that there. I'm going to take my end and feed this through. I probably should have started to say we're going to have the rough edge of the leather out, facing up. And I think they call that the grain edge, or the grain side, but I could be wrong. So again, we're just going to pull this through, and so the nice smooth finished side of the leather is going to be facing out. And again, you guys are looking at the front of the head, I'm looking at the back of the head. So we're going to pull this mostly through, but not all the way. It doesn't have to be tight yet, we're still going to feed some of our strings through it. Go ahead, get the other leather, and again, got our smooth side, and we got the rough side. Nice and rough and grainy, nice and smooth. Hopefully that shows up. Again, with the smooth side facing down to the ground, we're going to slide the leather in just till the point where the slit's exposed, as you can see. And then going to grab the other end of the leather, bring it through the slit, and just pull this guy through. And again, we're not going to pull it all the way tight. We'll go ahead and make it nice and straight through there. And I guess I can make it a little tighter than this. So pull that through, and just kind of our adjuster right there. Those can hang out. So now we're going to use our thicker leathers. If I can find the one that I just dropped on the floor, that'll make this a lot easier. So we're going to get started with, again, you can see these are slightly thicker, going with the 10-ounce leather on the outside, 8-ounce in the middle. So we're going to go ahead, slide these through. Sometimes the leather ends might be a little bit too wide for the holes, so what you're going to need to do is get your scissors and just trim down to a slight. Sometimes it's just a matter of taking a little corner off one of them. Sometimes then you have to go around and take that little corner off over here too. And then that'll come through, and then you just want to use your pliers and you can pull that through. So go ahead and start setting this one in. And with the thicker leather, sometimes you got to pull a little hard, but it's going to work. So again, I'm pulling it in until you can see the gap that I've cut through in the middle. Just going to bring my bottom string, or the bottom of this leather, bring that through the hole and pull it through. Again, we're not going to get it all the way tight, but we'll get it pretty close. And that's just going to hang there. And then we're going to take our other leather, and again, with the grain facing up, I'm going to slide that through this hole over here. Just going to pull it in. Yep, and this one looks like I'm going to need my little pliers. Just go ahead and grab that, pull that leather through, and again, just until we got that slit coming in, open it up so you guys can see it. And I'm going to bring the tail end of this leather through that opening, straighten her out, and get it down. Now there's nothing that says you have to have the grain side facing back, the smooth side facing in. In fact, I've done quite a lot of heads changing that up. Sometimes all the grain on the outside, all the grain on the inside, and sometimes I'll do just 2 of the leathers. I found that with the wider leathers, so these are 1/4 inch, this is just a little over 1/4 inch on the outers. When you start getting into the 1/2 and 3/4 inch on the outside, I found that flipping them so you've got the grain touching the ball gives a great grip on the side of that channel, and you still get the nice smooth release by keeping the smooth side of the leathers on the inside. So we've got our leathers hooked up, and those are just about ready to go. And we'll go ahead and prep this side just a little bit more. So again, we don't want these all the way tight, but we want to get them pretty close. So when it's time to tighten them, it's easy to do. Again, these leathers are just going to hang down here towards the bottom. And now we're going to go ahead and install our strings. So for this one, we're going to use 4 different strings. We're going to use 2 long ones and 2 kind of shorter ones. So our 2 longs are going to be 108 inches long. So, and that gives me plenty of extra string. And it just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going. And I got 2 of these at 108 inches long. And then I'm also going to have 2 shorter strings. These are going to make up some of the inside of the pocket are 54 inches long. So we're going to use the blue for that. So 54 inches. Alright. Now, we're going to start by putting a knot, big fat knot, if you got a surgeon, these monster holes like I do, on one end of each of those short strings. So I'm just going to tie this around. I'll try and keep that on camera since this is a video tutorial. And just get a nice big fat knot. Alright. That's going to hold. I'm happy with that. And again, and one knot on one end, the other end is empty. This knot we're going to go ahead and tie. Same big fat knot. Again, I'm going to pull this tight. Alright. Make sure both of those are the way I want them. And then we're going to go ahead and feed these into the top hole over here on the sidewall. So I'm going to bring that in, pull it all the way through. I'm then going to take, so we got the knot coming all the way to the side. We're then going to grab our slack, get that end again, same piece, and bring it under. I'm sorry, we'll go ahead and bring that on top of that knot and slide through the hole. Doesn't really matter, but for this head with these big holes, I'm going to bring it over the top side. And then we're just going to pull that slack through. Alright, we got that set. Now, we're going to take our other piece, that's that short one, we're going to go to the other side of the head. So we'll just spin this around, and again, I'm going to take my end right into this top hole here on the side, and pull that all the way through till the knot catches. And then I'm going to bring it around the back of the head, get that slack through there, and once again I'm going to go over my knot and pull this through. Alright, so if we're looking at it, we should have our leathers not secured at the bottom, still kind of loose, flopping around, and start to see we got our strings coming up here. And so this blue string is actually going to be some of the ones that crisscross in the middle. So I got to get it from this side to here. Pretty easy to do. Just going to grab the slack from here on this side, and again, you guys are looking at the front of the head, and I'm going to slide it inside the first loop up there, pull that slack through, and I'm going to go under inside of the middle leather there, inside leather, and pull that through. And now I can just kind of hang out because it's not going anywhere yet. Do the same thing from the other side. Grab our string, we're going to bring it through the loop we made in the leather where we attached it to the head. That's why I don't want to tighten these too much, because then you won't be able to get that string through just yet. So we're going to pull that through, get our slack in, and once again I'm going to go through this loop we made in the leather and the plastic right through there. Try not to loop it around the tail into your leathers. No big deal if you do, just untwist it. So we've got our 2 strings. These are going to weave together and become our middle. We're done with those for now. Now we need some strings that are going to connect here and connect out here. So to do that, that's why we've got our long 108-inch strings. You can get away with less, but again, I hate having not enough when I get done, and this ensures that I'm always going to have a little bit of extra, normally enough to even cut off a shooter with. So that's going to work out just fine. And depending on how many sidewall holes you have, you can get some really small diamonds, in which case you're going to need a lot of string. Or if you're using the really wide leathers, you're going to need more string because you're covering more surface area. So, since we need to cover this space here and this space here, we're going to loop our long string right in between this leather here. One end will go this way, one will go this way. So we grab one of our long strings and bring it up and through the same gap where we sent the blue string. And again, you don't want this really tight because then it's tougher to get the string through, so we can just loosen that a little bit. And now you can see we've got this one end coming from this side and one end coming from this side. So we're just going to make sure these are the same length. So we're just going to kind of pull it away from the head. Just going to keep lining these up until I get them the same. So we can just grab both loose ends, and hold on to those, and then just kind of chase the slack in, and then we'll just pull extra through, and there we go. Those are set up. This one's ready to be tightened. So I've got all those strings coming through. We go ahead, make sure the top of my slit is right up there, the hole of the plastic. I'm going to grab the tail in the back so you can see this part. Kind of pulling down, pushing with my thumb. I'm going to pull down from the front, and as I'm doing that, I'm going to pull up in the back. So I'm kind of pulling down and trying to pull as much of this leather through and get that as tight as possible. And keep pulling on the back, pull down from the front, pull up on the back, and we get that nice and tight. You want to make sure your strings are nice and tight through there too. You don't want them bunching up on you. Alright, so we got that. That's set to go. So we got these 2 strings. As you can see from here, those are going to connect through there. We've got our middle strings. We just need to do this side now. So we're going to grab our remaining really long string. Again, about 108 inches is what I like using. And I'm just going to feed it through this leather over here in between the plastic. And again, don't get it too tight, it'll be tough to feed through. So we've got that. Now I'm just going to start pulling this through, and again, we want this to be nice and even. Again, some heads I'll keep one string a little bit longer than the other coming down, depending on how much territory, how close the leathers are. A couple different factors. But for this one, we're going to be pretty much standard width, everything's spaced apart. We'll just go ahead and keep these the same length. So again, you just want to grab both ends, kind of hold them together, and then just start chasing the slack through, and then pull that tight, and that's going to straighten you out up there. So both of these are the same length, and you can see I'm ready to go. So now we're ready to tighten this guy up. So once again, I'm going to pull down in the front of the leather, and kind of pull as much of that through as I can, tighten it, pull up in the back, and pull them down again, kind of wrenching it back and forth. It's going to anchor into place. And again, we want to make sure our strings are nice and tight. And we'll finish those up. Alright, now we can tighten up our 2 middle leathers. So again, same thing. Just start pulling down from the bottom, pulling up from the back. Pull it on that bottom, pull it up. Maybe the leather kind of creak together. I'll let you know you're doing it right. Again, from this side, I'm just going to pull down from the bottom. Sometimes I wrench it up and down. That's going to pull this through. Pull up on the back. That's going to tighten it up. Alright, so we got that all set to go. Next thing I'm going to do is where we actually, before our final step in this, before we end this session of the video, that'll be where we tie on our mid-lax bottom string right now, before we get to that step, is something kind of I do that I haven't seen on a whole lot of other heads, or I'm not sure if I have. I actually tape these together. As you'll notice, we just did 1 loop. Some of you guys have some store-bought leathers, you might see 2 loops on there, and you're saying, hey, what's going on? How do we attach this other loop? I don't worry about it. Let's let that one hang off on the slack in the back. So we're going to go ahead, pinch these down together so that you see from the back. I'm just going to kind of hold this down, line those up, make sure it's nice and tight. Then I'm going to get my piece of tape, come around the front. First time I've done this without looking. We'll see how I do. So, and I like to get it just under where the leathers come together, coming out from that gap. So then, once I've got that on there, I'm going to kind of push both pieces of that leather together and wrap this tape around, and then do the same over here. I'm going to keep these as tight as possible, as close together and nice and straight. And then I'm just going to keep wrapping this tape, bring it around the front. I put enough tape so it goes around about 1.5 times, and I try and have it end up in the back. That way I don't have to worry about fraying too much or getting affected. You can use regular tape, white tape. You don't have to use tape. You can cut it thinner than this. But I also like doing the different colored tape because it's another way to, jazz up the head, make it look cool. Again, we're just going to work our way across, get this next one going here. So we're going to set up that going straight across the top, and then we're going to try and squeeze these two leathers together, the front and back part of it. Make sure it's nice and tight. Wrap that tape around the side, and again, holding this nice and tight through here. That tape gets twisted like I just did. Hopefully you can get it freed up. Otherwise, cut a new piece. You don't want to mess around with it. Good traditional pocket, we don't cut any corners. Well, unless you're cutting the corner off the leather to make it fit through a hole. But other than that, no other corners. Ha, I just came up with that. Alright, so again, just going to wrap this around, keeping it nice and tight, and finish that up. Alright, and then come, and for some reason, it's probably a good reason, but I like to work from the outside, come in, so come back over, set this guy up, and bring the tape right across the front, set it on there, again, just pinching these leathers together, bringing the tape around, and then doing the same with the other side, keep that nice and tight on there. Alright, finished pulling that tape around, and we got one more to go, and then we're on to that min-lax bottom string. Alright, so real quick, we'll get this guy done, or maybe not real quick. I like to take my time, do a good quality job. Alright, so got the tape on there, holding the leathers together, again just wrapping the tape around, getting that on tight, putting them together, keeping that tape nice and tight, and we'll just wrap this guy. Alright, so as you can see, we got our tops all ready to go. Let's see it from the back, looks the same. If we do it right, we're both at the same levels on each side, and if not, it's tape, you can kind of scoot it a little bit. Or again, you can use even splitting this in half like guys will do for putting tape on the butt end of a shaft. It doesn't have to be that big at all. And you probably don't have to tape it, it's not the end of the world. But I like it, and it looks kind of cool. So the last part, what we're going to do now, is our min-lax bottom string. So let me adjust the camera here, and we'll get down to business. You know what? Let me adjust it a little bit more. Alright, not quite professional as far as a videographer, but we're getting there. So, here's what we got. 4 leathers down here. Obviously, they're not going to fit into that hole. So, once again, I'm just going to kind of stall for a little bit, set this camera up, try and get you guys a better angle, and hopefully you won't realize that it's not very professional. And it's kind of shaking around, and I apologize for that as well. If I had some music, that'd be a little bit better. I'm going to play that right now, but I don't. So we're just going to go with that. And this should be a pretty good setup as far as the angle we need to see. So, again, these leathers way too big. They're not going to fit through these holes. So we have to take our wherever it went, I had a shorter piece of string here for the min-lax bottom string. I like to use about 18 inches or so. That seems to work pretty well. And we'll go ahead and start by putting a knot in one end. Doesn't have to be a big knot because we're not at the bottom of the head and we're not dealing with monster holes. So I'm just going to go ahead, throw a regular little knot in here. Hold that tight Alright, and now we're going to go ahead and feed the other end into that bottom hole here. Alright, so I've got that in, pulled it in through the knot, that's going to hold. Now, what I want to do, pull these leathers out so you can see. I'm going to bring this string to the inside, and I'm going to go down and into this first hole. And pull that slack all the way through, nice and tight. Now, I'm going to hold this leather in place, the first one, and I'm actually holding it right in between, kind of right over that hole right in the middle. I'm going to bring this string around. As you can see, we're going to keep this nice and tight, pulling down. Sometimes I'll keep a finger on the inside, hold it in place. I'm going to come around this leather on the outside. Again, you guys look at the back of the head, and back up through the same hole. So we've got that on there. And again, I'm going to go ahead and pull this nice and tight, starting from the end where we've got that knot, so that's on there. I'm going to kind of hold this leather, pull it down straight, nice and tight, right over the middle of that hole, and I'm going to pull this around, kind of hold it in place, and then pull up the slack. So we've just anchored our first leather. It's kind of a trick. You'll get takes a while to get used to. If you get it too tight, you'll end up cutting through your leathers. Too loose, don't move around too much. You get it just right, and it's just right. So now again, I've got this first one done. You kind of keep a finger here to hold this nice and tight. I'm then going to bring my string into the next hole on the bottom and bring it straight down in. Then I'll kind of move my finger into the inside of the head, kind of hold this in place, keep it tight. I'm then going around my next leather and then back up through the same hole again. And we're going to start pulling this slack through. Before we get it all the way tight, kind of lift up this little collar that we're making, pull down this leather nice and straight, make sure it's lined up even with the hole. Get that nice and tight, maybe get a finger on there, and then pull the slack through. Again, it takes a couple times to do it, but you'll get used to this tightness down here and what's good and what's not good. And you can always retighten it at the end. So, halfway done. So we're going to kind of keep that nice and tight, and I'm going to bring my string in down to the next hole in the throat. So in through there should be one hole open now. So again, we're going to keep this kind of tight, keep my finger on there. We're going to go around our next leather, back up inside the hole. It's coming towards you. And then once again, we're going to keep pulling the slack around, keep the leather pulled down so it's nice and tight. Get our strings coming across, keep that tight, and then we'll pull the slack through. So that's there. We've got one left to do. So again, I'm going to kind of hold on to it, keep it nice and tight through here, and I'm going to bring my string down to the last remaining hole in the throat. You guys can see it poke out the bottom there, and go ahead and pull that through, get it nice and tight, and I'll drop a finger on the inside, get her in there, hold it still. So again, last time we're going around the leather, and then it'll be coming up through the same hole in the bottom. It's our last hole in the throat, and we're up through there. So again, we're going to start pulling this tight. I'm going to kind of grab this collar piece down here, pulling this leather down, make sure it's nice and tight, even with the rest of them, square over that hole. Get that tight, pull this leather around, or excuse me, pull this string around, and then pull up our slack. Getting a little late. Alright. So, now we're finishing there. I'm going to spin this around so you guys can get a look at what we're seeing, what I'm seeing. So now you guys are looking at the inside, and this is coming out of that last hole in there. Just try and see if that helps you with the view. And now I'm going to bring this, just like a mirror image, into the hole, my last hole on the sidewall. So bring that through there, rotate that so you can see, pull this out. Now I'm just going to kind of make sure that stays nice and tight, and I'm just going to tie this off. And again, this is something you can adjust. You can tie it off now, redo it when you're done at the end, or if you get good at it, you won't have to. But I'm just going to tie that knot there, get that nice and tight, and now check it out. You've got strings, leather's attached. It looks like a lacrosse stick. Well, not really, because the strings are kind of loose. But we've got our Minlax bottom string. Just learned how to do that. Top secret. Don't tell anybody else. Learn how to set up the top of our string. The next video, we're going to learn how to start doing our sides coming down and then our middle chambers. So, from MinLax.com, this has been Coach Brian. Thanks for checking it out, and we'll see you in part 2.